I'm here with Jarel Shaw doing a quick video. We was talking about how we don't feel that you need to beat, whoop, or verbally abuse your child to get them to behave well.
No.
And you had an example of a family member that spends time with you sometimes, and then go ahead and tell us a story
Yeah.
about how his behavior is different.
I have a nephew. His name is Jay Sean. And I learned in psychology that there was an attachment period with with a child that, within that time period that they become more attached and more frequent with you. And my nephew right now, he is 8 years old. And pretty much by the time of that attachment period of his being younger, he was with me and my mother more than anything. And we did not whoop him. We did not put him in timeout. We just told him, what right and wrong was.
Oh, so you started teaching him?
Yeah, we started teaching him what right and wrong was. If he did something wrong, we would bring him to the side and tell him the reasons why that is wrong and why it should not be done, and what the right thing, behind it is, and he should continue that.
A culture of teaching.
Yes. And with him doing that, when he goes back to his mother, they put him in timeout when he does something wrong. They whoop him when he does something wrong. And it's come to me to realize now that he is more of a carbon copy of me. Of when I was younger, he acts just like me, and he is more frequent with my mother, being more of a figure to look at in life more. And he acts better with us than he does with his mother. And that's very important to realize, that you don't have to beat or put your child in some type of timeout, or give him some type of, physical discipline, that makes him, mentally, wrong.
Right.
All you have to do is just really, I think, talk to them, generously, but mean what you say. And for him to be more connected with me and my mother than he is with his own mother is very important. With them being, with us also being the authority figure in his life, and probably being with his mother more, he still is more mischievous with his mother than he is with us.
Okay. I like that, because I have 4 kids, and I don't whoop or verbally abuse my children either. And what I notice is when I see kids that are whooped or hit with items or somebody's hand, you tend to see those kids walking around with their hand up. You ever seen that before? A little kid walking around like they're going to hit you? Mm-hmm. And I see that a lot in kids that have been whooped. You see a lot of aggression in kids that have been hit and whooped. Yeah, and studies show that kids that are being whooped, hit, or verbally abused end up doing that later. They exhibit a lot of aggressive behavior.
Right.
Go ahead.
They do the same thing. And for some people, for some kids in general, especially in high school, or middle school for that matter, they have this aggression within them. The more that kids are mostly being whooped or beaten in some type of way for doing things that are bad, I know and I see that the more that it happens, the sooner that anger keeps growing. For some people, they say, when somebody does this to them, I'll whoop them, I'll hit them in the face, I'll do this, I'll defend myself, I will start a fight, I will do some type of violence to repel. And that pretty much just goes back to whatever their parents did to them. They feel like that there's some type of disciplinary action to be done to a child. They'll say, in a certain way, I'll whoop a kid's ass, some type of that. Right. But that's coming back from what their parents have done to them, why they have that psychological doing to them, and why they feel that's necessary.
Right. And if we look at a whole of the majority of people that have been beaten, whooped, and verbally abused, would you say a majority of them are great critical thinkers? Or would a minority of them be great critical thinkers?
It's very hard to put that in the right thing. I would say they're not really good at critical thinking. They're not good.
Well, they couldn't be if they quickly ready to fight.
They are. It's literally like a psychological thing. When you go into psychology, you start realizing that most of your thinking starts with your frontal lobe.
Right.
And
what's still developing when that child gets hit
is the frontal lobe. And as that's being developed, if if it's being developed in a certain way, that's how the thinking will come to.
Right. So see, adults like to think that when they hit a child, the child is going to logically pick up the logical reasons for being hit.
Right.
But that's not true. The child is learning that whenever I do this, I'm going to get hit or cursed at. So I'm trying my best not to do this anymore. They're also learning, whenever there is conflict, I can settle it with violence.
Right.
Because that's what seems to happen. Whenever I get in trouble, there's violence coming. So maybe it's okay for me to do it this way. Now, they're not logically thinking about it the way I am. But when people get in stressful situations, they do what they know. So if they've been hit when their parents and themselves have been stressed, then when they are in a stressful situation, they will hit. Right. That's how it works.
Especially and as that grows and they become like into school and stuff like that, when we have children, teenagers, when we have people, when we have people having so much anger or so much aggression and violence in their life from their childhood, and they bring that as they grow, we have fights in schools. Now, when we have fights in schools, people get suspended, people get expelled, and people don't think that's going to solve the problem because we have no more violence in schools. That's not the case, because that's going out into the world. That violence is going out. That's why people are getting killed constantly. That's why people are all of a sudden disappearing. That's why people are getting injured, going into the hospital because of that aggression that was not settled in school and not settled when they were younger.
So let's put this in context then, because you're exactly right. I don't want to cut you off, but I want you to keep going with, so historically. So first, let's set this. The people who whoop, beat, and hit their kids the most for discipline are black people.
Right.
Now, historically, blacks were disciplined by being verbally abused by whites and by being whipped and beaten by whites. Then once slavery was over, we moved to Jim Crow and lynching.
Right.
Same type of thing, right? So now we got the black parent doing the same thing to the child. We got an increase in domestic violence because the black man has